This is Lake Street in Minneapolis.
Lake Street is like a central ground.
It's the day after George Floyd died in police custody. Protests took place across the city.
It was a peaceful protest.
There was other people out there that, wanted to cause destruction.
People just showed up to just mess with the city.
You can burn Lake Street in a night, but you can't rebuild it in a day.
Over the course of the next 2 days, buildings along Lake Street were destroyed. And false rumors about the cause of the violence ran rampant.
With the riots and the looting, we had a lot of out-of-state people.
You could hear people ask, where's Lake Street, while we're walking on Lake Street.
The people that are doing this are not Minneapolis residents.
A viral tweet sparked another rumor that the anti-fascist group Antifa was behind the violence. 3 days later, the president appeared to confirm this theory.
The memory of George Floyd is being dishonored by rioters, looters, and anarchists. The violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups.
Experts were skeptical.
I know there have been a lot of arrests. I'm not sure I've seen any evidence to suggest that any of those have been linked to those who believe in Antifa ideas.
So we decided to investigate.
The Antifa, it really refers to a decentralized network of militants that oppose what they believe and what they call are fascist, racist, or otherwise right-wing extremist groups.
In recent years, Antifa has focused on counter-protests for big white nationalist events.
It's not entirely out of the question that some white supremacists might show up at some of the protests, and that could then drive Antifa to show up.
Still, sorting out who is and isn't Antifa isn't always straightforward.
It's a challenge because this is not an organized group. You're essentially looking to try to identify what does somebody believe in.
Sometimes members carry flags, wear patches, leave marks with graffiti. They often wear all black and can be identifiable by how they organize. We spoke with eyewitnesses, reviewed dozens of videos and photos from violent incidents on May 26th, 27th, and 28th in Minneapolis, but found no clear evidence that Antifa was responsible for the violence.
Saw like little crowds, maybe of people wearing all black, but at the same time, I wouldn't identify them as part of that group just because my boyfriend would go out there sometimes wearing all black too, and it was more of a, it's a little sign of, Black Lives Matter without, having the wording on there.
There were reports of some Antifa at different protests, but they stood back, did not engage, certainly not in a violent way.
Records from the Minneapolis police show the vast majority of those arrested were in fact from the surrounding area and were for non-violent actions. At least 9 people have been charged in federal court for crimes connected to the protests in Minneapolis. None of the charging documents point to an Antifa affiliation. But the president and the Trump administration were clear. Antifa started the violence.
But in recent days, our nation has been gripped by professional anarchists, violent mobs, arsonists, looters, criminals, rioters, Antifa, and others.
Minneapolis was far from the only city that saw massive protests.
As I've looked at the over 140 cities where there have been protests and talked to U.S. officials within some of the joint terrorism task forces, by far the vast majority of violence that they have told me by far has been sort of local hooligans, sometimes gangs, sometimes just individuals that are trying to take advantage of an opportunity.
More than 14,000 people across 49 cities have been arrested since May 27th. But law enforcement officials have not yet established a meaningful link to Antifa. More than 80 people have been charged in federal court with crimes connected to the nationwide protests. Currently, 4 are known to have white nationalist affiliations, including 1 person charged with killing a police officer in Oakland. None have known ties to Antifa. An FBI intelligence bulletin, first reported by ABC, suggested white nationalists were more likely to be behind the violence.
We have found significantly more, right-wing extremists, whether it's anti-government types, even some white supremacists, that we can say we have evidence that they showed up, and very little, frankly, to suggest that Antifa has.
That begs the question, how did the president come to blame Antifa? A simultaneous chain of events took place online in the days following the first protests in Minneapolis and the destruction of Lake Street. On May 27th, a viral tweet claimed, without evidence, that Antifa was connected to the violence of the protests.
Within a day, there were numerous stories across the far-right media ecosystem which alleged that Antifa terrorists were responsible for one incident or another.
On May 29th, there were dozens more protests, and Twitter mentions of Antifa reached roughly 300,000. By May 30th, they were nearly 5 times that. That same day, Trump blamed Antifa for the violence of the protests. On May 31st, social media mentions of Antifa peaked after Trump tweeted he would name Antifa a terrorist organization, although he has no authority to do so under existing law. Google Trends show that search interest for Antifa far surpassed instances of conversation around the group in 2017 and 2018.
Search interest in Antifa was so great, in fact, that it outweighed search interest in Black Lives Matter during these protests.
Rumors started to appear on social media about a wide variety of allegations about Antifa's actions.
So whether it's, Antifa buses are dropping people off at rallies, or Antifa is talking about showing up in the suburbs to create chaos, or Antifa is leaving bricks in cities where there are protests. All of that has been a coordinated effort at misinformation. Frankly, more coordinated than it seems Antifa has been in actually being on the ground.
Counter-protesters and armed militias came to stop Antifa protests that were never planned. Trump even promoted a false conspiracy theory, saying a 75-year-old protester in Buffalo was Antifa after he was shoved by police.
I think sometimes it's easier to believe that extremists are responsible for chaos or looting or rioting than it is to just accept the fact that Americans are angry.
For us, we kind of had to take a step back and think, all right, well, we can't get mad at the people for getting angry. All you got to do is kind of push them in the right direction.
Without waiting for arrest data or other facts, the president and members of his administration placed an outsized burden of blame on Antifa that has led to more chaos and violence in an already turbulent moment. If there are statements you've heard politicians say that don't quite make sense at rallies, state fairs, in That One Friend's feed, let us know. Send us a note or a tweet with what they said and your question. We'll check it out. You can follow along by subscribing to the Post YouTube channel and watching more Fact Checker videos here.